Good morning, everybody. Dan here with Dan and Sarah Makers, and welcome back to another edition of our garden shed build series. As you can see, it's getting a little ostentatious or grand, but we're having fun with it. We might as well make it look good while we're at it. So it is chilly for me this morning. I am not used to it being this chilly yet, so I need to start working and warm up a little bit. It got below freezing last night, which is, you know, our garden didn't even get planted yet this year. No, it's not going to get planted at all this year. So it kind of makes you feel like that time crunch is coming to where snow's going to be on the ground here in a couple months. But yeah, today's video, we are going to focus on a lot of the little details like blocking, backing, cutting the rafter tails to length, starting to get all that stuff taken care of. That way, when we go on with our next steps, which is roof sheeting, fascia, eventually soffit material, all that stuff will go smoothly. So we're making sure things are square, they're level, they're even, they're in line. All that good stuff will happen now, and that will make life a lot easier later. We've got some blocking that we need to put on top of our 6x6 timber frame truss out front here, that if we don't do it before we put our roof sheeting on, there's going to be no way to do it later, and that will make our soffit material that's going to get nailed to the underside here a lot easier to install. So we're going to get after that, and you'll get to see some of the different details that we need to keep in mind early on so that later things are easier.
screws per rafter.
That's Simpson for you.
Left-handed.
Hate those people. They're almost up there with gingers.
They're almost up there with what?
Gingers. Left-handed gingers are the worst.
I almost got on the trash can.
What was that?
A defective screw.
Oh, you were throwing? I'm like, is that the camera? So right now I'm cutting the notches on top of these two rafters here for our lookouts. So I set the saw 1.5 inches deep and I just cut through the tops of them on both sides. And the lookout will be a 2x4 on the flat that will get dropped into this notch or knockout and nailed in to support our fascia. It'll also travel past this rafter and be nailed in through the other rafter. So basically it'll touch two rafters and the fascia. So I'm cutting it 1.5 inches deep, and I am kind of concerned about that depth, but when I cut the bottom to knock this piece out, I'm gonna just plunge cut the saw in, and I'll actually overcut either side. This is gonna be sitting directly on top of our 6x6 timber truss in the front, so strength-wise that's not really an issue. It's not free spanning on the side walls, it's also sitting on gable end walls, so I'm not too concerned there. So I'm going to set the saw depth deep enough that I can knock this thing out with just a single plunge cut. There we go. And then when we get up there, we'll just nail these in and we'll be good. So as you saw, after I installed this one, what we'll call a gable end rafter, I went ahead and I put 2x4s on either side of it that overhang the edge of our 6x6 here. That is for backing for the tongue and groove paneling that we'll put on the underside of the entryway ceiling. If I waited to put that on, or attempt to put that on after we nail down the roof decking, it'd be next to impossible because I've only got about 2 inches of space to try and secure it down. And we want this beam to look fairly nice, so we don't want to run toenail screws or nails up through the bottom edge of this beam into that backing. So I put that on ahead of time. I'm gonna go ahead and put these lookout pieces in, and that will get us pretty close to getting ready for fascia. I do have to cut the ends of our rafter tails, but that will be next. I took a couple minutes to make a mock-up of our fascia, rafter tails, roof sheeting, and faux TNG underside paneling, just so you can kind of see how we're going to build out the roof edge in this particular area where the rafter tails come down at a 45-degree angle. For our fascia, we're just using 2x6 material. I went ahead and I adjusted it down so that the plane of the top of the rafters hits the center of our fascia. So 3/4 of an inch away from the end of the rafter, it hits the center of this fascia. That's in plane for what I want. Then, when I put my 1/2 inch roof sheeting on, the top of the roof sheeting is almost exactly in plane with the outside corner of the fascia. I don't have to do any miter cuts. I don't have to worry about any weird spacing or having the roof sheeting stick up and overhang the edge or anything like that. It gives me a nice clean in-plane profile, so everything kind of terminates nice and easily. With that being done, I have enough 2x6 material sticking down below the end of my rafter tails, the very point on the bottom, that I can put 3/4 inch tongue and groove paneling with a miter cut on the backside, tight up against the inside of the fascia. I get a little 1/8 inch reveal here, so that's good. I don't want them to flush out 100%. I want a little bit of reveal on the backside. So this is how we're going to do this portion of the roof. We've got 3 distinct roof portions that we've got to terminate, the fascia and the decking and all that too. But that's how we'll do our rafter tails, where they stick out the end like this. For cutting our rafter tails to length, this is where the nice straight line is paramount to having a good looking building. So for our rafter tails, we're going to come out 11 inches from the face of the beam here. So I'm just taking my tape measure, pushing it, bumping it against the beam, keeping it fairly level, and I'm making just a little mark right there at 11 inches from face of building. I'm going to take my square and just make a line across the top, and then while I'm here, I'm also going to take my little torpedo level and make a plumb line coming down from that edge. And I try and be really picky about this because this is where all of our fascia and everything that lines up and, whoops, should look good is going to be visible. All right, so we're going to this line to the left, not the right one that I messed up. I've got my first rafter tail marked out. I want all these to be nice and straight. So I'll do the same thing at the far end, but before I do that and travel that way, I'm just gonna drive a nail in here, get it somewhat plumb. I'll check it when I come back, but I'm just gonna put my string line on it for now. Throw the string on the ground, and then I'm gonna go to the other side, do the same thing. I'll run my string line, and then I can mark all of them at once. So I'm gonna have the string up off the top of the rafters just a little bit. I don't want them hitting anything. So I slide my square down. That's where it just starts to touch. It's still a little high. Right about there is where I want it. So I just want the square to touch the string line and not move it. So as I go down, I'll just slide my square down. Again, 12-12 pitch roof makes it real easy. Just barely touching the string there.
I think I need a...
Doing this kind of work always requires a lot of moving ladders. Just back and forth, back and forth. That's why scaffolding is kind of nice, because you can set it up and you can move back and forth and work more easily, quickly. All right, there we go. Thanks for joining us for another installment of our Garden Shed Build video series here. This is the end of the day for us. We've got other stuff we got to work on, but even though it doesn't look like we got a lot done in our last video, we threw up a lot of rafters, and that's where things really start to pop and really look good fast. Not the case as much today. We did backing, we did blocking, we did a couple of rafters that were just kind of infills here and there. We trimmed some rafter tails back. We built a mock-up of our roof system at our pitched edge of the roof. So it's a lot of little stuff that kind of adds up. There's a term in framing called pickup work, and that's where you go in and you do the backing for all sorts of weird things. You make sure all the clips are installed and screwed off or nailed off properly. Hold downs, things like that. So it's not glamorous, but it's what needs to be done to make the job work and everything go together smoothly. So that was today. We also did a little bit of layout and figured out where we're going to build some custom louvered gable end vents, and just kind of got the design figured out for that. We also replaced a couple studs. Like I said, I overcut them. I cut them a little bit too long, and I had nailed them in plumb, and that forced our gable end wall to have a hump in it. So I had knocked those out when we put the rafter on that a couple days ago. So we got those replaced too. So anyways, this is Dan with Dan and Sarah Makers. Follow us on Instagram at Dan and Sarah Makers, and be sure to like, comment, subscribe, thumbs up these videos. That helps us a lot. We really appreciate that. So thank you very much. And we hope this inspires you to get out there and do something. So until tomorrow or our next video, have a good one. Bye.